so good to see you all this morning. I wish Venice could be with us here this morning. It's Anchor's birthday today. Did you know? Anchor Central especially is 7 years old today, and yes, happy birthday! I guess Mom. I don't know. Anchor Central, but so Venice is over there today. But I wish she was here because we're starting off talking about New York, which is her stomping grounds. I wanted to talk with you about Pier 54, which was kind of a forgotten part of New York. Nobody really paid attention to it. It wasn't in use anymore, but it had this really kind of storied history because it was where the Titanic was supposed to come into dock. And of course that didn't happen, but then it was where the Lusitania came. So it kind of had all these notorious associations in history, but then it just sort of was not used anymore and forgotten about, kind of just seen as a relic. And then Hurricane Sandy came along, and it was actually one of the few landmarks along the shoreline that actually survived the hurricane. And so it kind of took on this new symbolism as sort of an emblem of resilience. And so they were redeveloping it, and the architect who was assigned to this was like, you build piers one way, flat and straight, because that's where ships are coming to dock. But if that is not happening, then the restrictions on design are kind of off. What could we do that looks totally different? And so that was the beginning of what is called Little Island in New York. And I mean, it's just such a contrast as you look at that little space compared to the city behind it. And they really used the idea of a pop-up storybook to go, this doesn't just have to be all one dimension. So they added all these curves and hills to it, and it's all these plants to make it a place of greenery. And so it's supposed to be a spot where you can just feel like you're not in the city anymore, which was pretty cool. And the architect said this about it. He said, who wants to be on a bigger bit of Manhattan when you can go to another place instead? I thought that was pretty great. And it made me, that the picture of that to me feels like what church is really intended to be, as this counterpoint to the rest of culture that takes us somewhere else, that is full of life and beauty and joy, and so full of something that is just different to what you see everywhere else, especially right now. And I'm really excited to be stepping into this little mini series with you here this morning as we're looking at who we are as a church, what does it mean to just be church in general, Anchor specifically, and then really even Anchor Lincoln particularly. And we're going to use that statement that Joey referenced, that if you go to Anchor Central, you can see it plastered on the front wall as you're walking in, that we're a community of imperfect Jesus followers living for the good. And we're going to break that down actually over the next 3 weeks. So today we're going to talk about just that aspect of what does it mean to be a community? What does it mean to be a community? Paul Tournier said this. He said, there are two things we cannot do alone. One is be married, and the other is to be a Christian. Which I think is a good reminder, because so often when we talk about our faith, we frame it up in very personal terms, don't we? I mean, we think about our own relationship with the Lord, but there's this entire dimension to it that you can't capture apart from talking about the collective nature of the body of Christ. We're not in this alone. And so, as I was thinking about where to start with this, because community is kind of a really broad topic, I thought of a passage in Ephesians that it's actually a prayer of Paul's that I think is really a great place to begin. When Paul wrote his letters to the different churches, he never sat down deciding, I'm just going to write a general description of Christianity and what it means. Every single one of those letters was to churches that were in particular context wrestling with what does this mean to be Christians in our environment. And so I think that helps it translate into us as we're working through the same thing. What does it look like to be a Christian community in the 21st century? So I really like this prayer, and I wanted to kick us off with this. So he said, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. And I really wanted to zero in on just this one phrase in here, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people. There is something really precious and beautiful and of immense worth in the body of Christ, in the shared collective experience that we call church. It's so deep and powerful, and there is so much for us in it. He's saying, I want you to get this. And notice though how he led into that with this first phrase. He's praying that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, meaning that maybe we're not going to see it automatically what the church is. And here's the thing, I think that it's easy to miss the gift of the church. It's easy to not see it. It's easy to, for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's because we're so familiar with it, and we've just, we just get so used to it. Or maybe there's been a lot of church hurt for us, and it hasn't been exactly a beautiful experience. There's a lot of reasons why we might miss out on it. But I think if there was anything that I could pray for this community this morning, it would be that you would come to see what a rich and glorious inheritance you have in each other as a church. I'm coming here this morning from kind of a unique vantage point in that, for one, as the interim pastor, I've done this kind of deep dive, cold immersion into this church community really fast, getting to know people, getting to see how things operate, getting this really close-up view while also kind of coming into it from the outside. And I have to say, being able to see it up close, man, this is an amazing group. There are just some beautiful people here, and it is really, really remarkable, and it's been such a delight to be able to step in and have the privilege of walking alongside you during this time. The other piece that I bring this morning, though, is also as somebody whose community is no more, that our church that ended in January, and we're still grieving. There's several people here that are still feeling that loss so deeply. And I just want to say to you this morning, don't take this place for granted. Yeah. Don't take each other for granted. It is so beautiful and sacred. So that is my main heart for you, is that you would have the vision to see it. Vision, we're talking a lot about vision, and vision is important, but I think Paul is telling us here that it's the vision of what you already have, what is already yours, is greater than the vision of what you might become. It's really easy to focus in on the future and what's next and all the things that you're not satisfied with about where the church is. And I'm telling you, the vision to see what you really have right now, that is the most important thing. The other stuff will come, and it's important, and it's good to have goals and direction, but first to go, man, this is something pretty incredible and sacred. So I want to just think for a minute, and I'm not asking you to answer these questions out loud, but I want you to just think for a minute about what your dream is for the church. And go, how would you fill in these blanks? I can't wait until maybe till Markel comes, or till we get a new church building, or whatever. You know what it is that you dream of for the church. Or I wish we had a youth group. I wish we had more people serving. What, you can go on and on. What is the thing that you wish for? If more people would give, if more people would get involved in anchor groups, if more people would, again, fill in the blank, and we just need to more. We need to pray more. We need to give more. We need to study more. We need to go deeper. All these things, those are all really, really good things. But the problem is when we start to fixate on the things that are not right now, then we begin to cultivate some discontent. And we get frustrated with other people who are maybe going at a different pace than we are. And we want to know, why are they not as committed? Why do they not care as much? And it takes us out of really engaging with each other. There's this really convicting quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He said, "The person who loves their dream of community will destroy community, but the person who loves those around them will create community." Really, it's so simple, right? I mean, it is wonderful to have some things that you want to see the church lean into. Of course, we want to see growth on all levels, but to first begin with that idea that we need to really love and appreciate who's here right now, and to recognize the gift that it is. So, I want to talk about community. What is a community? And here I will actually ask you to answer the question. What exactly is community? What comes to mind when you think of that word? Relationships. Support.
Living life together.
Living life together. There's one over here. Friendship. Safeness. What?
Parties.
That's kind of part of community for sure. Serving. Somebody say serving. Network. Messy. That's a good one. Okay, here, if you Google it, you'll find lots of different definitions for community. But since I have a microphone, here's the definition we're going to go with today. It's a group of individuals uniting around something that gives them a sense of belonging, identity, and purpose. Okay, so that can apply broader than just to church. Think about for a minute some of the things that become sources of community for people. Values. Maybe you've heard of this little thing called politics, that people seem to cluster around their ideas, certain values there. Or geography, just being from a certain place. Their towns are a form of community. Abilities, people that share certain talents or skills. Interests. If you're a Seattle sports fan, there's some stuff to celebrate this last week, and that tends to form community a lot. Culture. What? Yes. So, culture, though, immigrants. If you have first-generation immigrants, really gravitate to the old country culture, and then second generation likes the new culture of where they've moved to. Experience. Combat vets share that bond that is really deep because of what they've been through. Life stage. I feel like half of this church has babies right now, and I'm not in that community, but yeah, I mean, some of the the people that we raised our kids with, we're still tight friends with them. Or obligations, something that you have to do, can also be a source of community. The thing about all these centers for community, though, is that they're not only defining who's in the community, they're defining who's not in the community. Right? They are inclusive and they're exclusive, and especially lately in culture, it feels like if you're not in a community, then you are villainized sometimes. You are seen as other, and it is more and more difficult for different communities to connect with each other. And some of these, like Mensa for geniuses, you have to be in the 98th percentile on IQ tests to get in, or so I'm told. I don't wouldn't know. But, or the classic Phineas and Ferb episode of Nerds of a Feather, where there are the people who are into their fantasy movies and the kids who are into their sci-fi movies, and they go to do war with each other and sing the song, "Our movie's better than yours," But we tend to have groups that separate us as well as that create community. And this is where the church, I think, is different and is like that little island that's floating above the river, because this little patch of green that is the church is the one thing that we are united around is grace. Particularly, I would say it's grace as found in the cross of Christ. What makes for membership in the church, and you might be new to church and go, "I don't understand, I'm just showing up, I don't know what's going on." Here is the very simple truth about who is part of a church community. It's those who have said, "I need a Savior. I need somebody to make my connection with God right, because there's some brokenness in me and I can't fix it. I don't know how to get right." And Christ coming and dying and rising again, that restored the capacity for you and me to have a relationship with God again. And all that church is people who have said, "Yeah, I need that." It is our need and Christ's provision that gives us the center of our community. That's what we're gathered around. And because anybody can say, "Yes, I need that," this is a community that's open to anybody. Right? There are no barriers other than just saying, "Yeah, I want that. I need that." And so people can come at different stages of exploring that, and maybe on the very front end of that journey and don't really understand it yet. And it's all great, because church is a place where we are all discovering our grace, and that is at the heart of everything. And so it means some of these other groups, we don't have to, there's nothing about those other groups then that is a criteria for being part of church. You don't have to be part of a specific political persuasion to be part of church. In fact, that should be one of the things that is a hallmark of church, is that people from all different walks of life are invited to the table. If you think back to Jesus and his table and his first 12 disciples, who looked remarkably similar, if you think about that little group that he had invited to the table, and we'll just take two people as an example. On the one end of the table you have Matthew the tax collector, and on the other end you have Simon the Zealot. Matthew, who was raising funds for the Roman oppressors. And at the same table is Simon the Zealot, who's part of a group that wants to commit political violence to overthrow the oppressors. You could not have two more opposite perspectives at the same meal. And Jesus didn't say, "Okay, before you guys come follow me, you have to get your politics straightened out, and you have to come to a point of agreement around this." They were just invited. And the thing that centered them, that they were there for, was Jesus. And here's the thing, as they move closer to Jesus, guess what? They're going to move closer to each other in the process too. Right? And the same is true for us. There's not a bar, there's not an extra barrier that has to be accomplished before we say we need Jesus. And once we do that, if we are keeping our eyes on him, if we are moving towards him, if we are growing in our relationship with him, we're going to get closer to each other. And so if that's our commitment, if our commitment is to stay connected to our need for Christ, then that is going to be our source of unity. Oops, there we go. So I want to go back to this phrase that we talked about at the beginning, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his people. And I want to get sort of grammatical and nerdy here for a minute. So bear with me, because I think this will be important. But if you were to translate more literally from the Greek this phrase, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his people, a better way to say it would be the riches of the glorious inheritance of him in his holy people. Now that may not sound much different, because the of him might still sound like a possessive there, that it's his inheritance. But I think it's equally valid to translate it the inheritance of him. He is the inheritance in his people. Because if you look at where Paul wrote in another place, he talked about the fragrance of the knowledge of him. Same kind of phrase there, and it's not that it's Jesus knowledge, it's knowing Christ. He is the content. He's the content of this inheritance that we find in his people. The more we get to know each other, and the more we appreciate what is here for us in this community, the more that it draws us to Christ. And so what I think is that the best thing about Christian community is that we get to see Jesus over and over again in each other. Right? In a whole lot of variety. We showed a couple of weeks ago, we showed the picture of the stained glass and how the light's coming through it, and it all looks different. And the same is true with church. There are so many different ways to see Jesus in a different light through the different personalities, the different life stages, or whatever that is so unique. Jesus said, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the in-between of them." That's my translation there at the end. But I think it's accurate, because you can have Christ in you. If you're a follower of Christ, you have his Spirit in you. You already have the fullness of Christ in you. I, as a follower of Christ, have the full Spirit of Christ in me. But when we come together, there is something in the in-between where we get to see him more. It's like if you think about diodes or wires with the little arc of electricity between them. And you go, the wires are fine on their own, but then when they're brought together is when you can see something that you couldn't see otherwise. And the same is true in Christian community. There is a visibility to Christ that shows up in ways that we just don't see just on our own. I love this quote from Watchman Nee, who said, fellowship is like the Bible word for community. So fellowship means, among other things, that we are ready to receive of Christ from others. Other believers minister Christ to me, and I'm ready to receive. I don't know that I am ready to receive most of the time. I don't think I'm paying attention enough to recognize that that's what's happening. This last week, Anchor Central hires a number of interns, and this week, oh sorry, were you trying to grab a picture of that? I can go back. There you go. Somebody once told me that this holding phones up in sermons is the new amen. So, but Anchor hires interns for the year, and there were 2 interns this last week. I had not said anything more to them than a passing hello. I had not really engaged with them much, and I had this really significant conversation with each of them separately that I realized afterwards, wow, they were ministering Christ to me. They're less than half my age. They haven't been walking with Jesus for that. It wasn't about like their maturity or they weren't even aware that this was what they were doing, but Christ was there. We talked a couple weeks ago about the mystery in you, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. It's mysterious. We don't understand it. We don't control it. It's there. If you've got Christ in you, he's there. And that's a mystery, and it comes through to other people. And it doesn't have to be because you have your life all together. Even sometimes it's the people who are aggravating to us that are ministering Christ to us. You know, we can receive his correction from other people. We can receive his comfort or his encouragement or his leading. All these things are ours in this glorious inheritance that is the family of God and his holy saints. So, if we're applying it here, what does it actually look like for us as we're living in community here at Anchor Lincoln? I think there are a few things. First of all, we are going to open the doors as wide as possible, and we lift up what is central as high as possible.
Yeah.
Right? It is, you are welcome here, whoever you are. If it's your first time, welcome. We are glad you're here. You do not have to be anything other than yourself to be here. And we're going to hold up Christ and the need for Christ and his cross for every single one of us. And we all have the opportunity to say yes to that. And to receive what he has for us in it. So part of being the kind of community that we want to be as a church is that we're opening the doors as wide as possible and lifting Christ as high as possible. Secondly, I'd say we're going to work to stay present and attentive to what Christ is doing in the present. We're not just going to think about what could be and you know, the dream that we have for the future, or comparing ourselves to somebody else saying, man, I wish we were like that. We're going to go, what's going on right here? Here's the thing. God is the eternal present. He is the great I am. He is existing in the moment, and if we are not present to the moment, we're going to miss out on what he's doing. God does not live in our imaginary futures. He lives right here in real life and in real time. And so let's pay attention to what Christ is doing right here in the present. Third thing would be that we're going to exercise as many opportunities as possible to demonstrate grace to each other, to give each other grace. And guess what? In a church this size, there are so many opportunities to exercise grace. I think it was Eugene Peterson who said, you get 100 sinners in a room, and what do you expect? You know? You're going to have plenty of opportunities to say, I'm sorry. And plenty of opportunities to say, I forgive you. And just to not be withholding of our concern or our support for somebody, to not be stingy with that grace, to give people lots of room for where they are at. And part of that grace is not just for their benefit, it's for the people outside the church. Another place where Paul wrote, he said, the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. And you notice back to this metaphor of blindness and not being able to see something. Maybe that's because Paul experienced blindness for himself, and that's a powerful picture for him. But he's saying this gospel, if you're outside the church, it's hard to understand it because of the forces at work in the world. And he said, what we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. He said, for God who said, let light shine out of darkness, get this, he made his light shine in our hearts. In other words, he enlightened our hearts, like he prayed for the Ephesians, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. Here's the thing. As we lean into that grace, as Christ shines more light into our lives, that is not just for our benefit, it's for the world who can't see it otherwise, and we then are enabled to share that grace beyond the walls of the church. It is a powerful testimony when people see grace at work in the church. So, not only will we exercise as many opportunities as possible to demonstrate grace, we'll also exercise as many opportunities as possible to receive grace. Staying close to my own need for grace feels really important for how I treat other people, how I let go of judgment Because if I'm really focused on my own need, and that goes deeper, there's so many places that I still need more healing and growth and the work of the Lord in my life, that if I can stay connected to that is going to make me more hospitable to other people in the church. I love this quote from Dorothy Day. She said this. She said, "The older I get, the more I meet people, the more convinced I am that we must only work on ourselves to grow in grace. The only thing we can do about people is to love them." That's really powerful, because I want to fix people. I want to change people. I want them to change, and so then I end up frustrated with them. But it was Christ who the one single thing that he gave us as the way that the world would know that we're his, is the way we love each other. That's it. That's it. And we make it sometimes more complicated. But I think the more that we grow in grace, the more we stay in tune with our own need for it, the more we're going to be able to love each other. It was, again, Jesus who said, "Whoever's forgiven much, loves much." Right? So to be able to stay connected with grace. That's what my hope and prayer is for us as a community. You may have noticed that there's some little cards on your chairs. We were a little short, so it may have been every other one, so you may have to reach across to one next to you. But here's the thing, really, you don't even have to this morning, as part of exercising grace, you don't have to agree with everything that I said here this morning. And all I would ask of you is two things. One, in this season, that is a really significant, crucial season, I would say, in the life of this congregation, in this transition period, would you be praying for your community here? Would you be praying not just prayers of, "Lord, change our church," but, "Lord, here's what I'm grateful for. Here's what I'm thanking you for today, what I see of your hand at work in this church." The other thing I would ask of you is that you would just be thinking about some of these questions and wrestling with, when you go out the door during the week, to not just check out of church mode, but to be thinking about it all through the week. We're going to be doing some of these questions in some of the groups. They're going to continue this conversation about who we are as a church. But for those of you who aren't in groups, I wanted you to have something to just be reflecting on. So this is a little bookmark you can maybe put in a book, or on your dashboard, or on your mirror, or something to just be mindful of some of these questions that we're going to be thinking about in the next few weeks, and just to be prayerful for your church community. As we are coming to the Lord's Supper this morning, which we do each week as part of our commitment to holding the central things high and bringing us back to the message of the cross, as Jesus, these elements that we have in communion representing the body and blood of Christ, which he said, "This is for you." But he also did that in the context of community, and we're taking it in the context of community. That's why it's often referred to as communion. In addition to the Lord's Supper, it's not just communion with Christ, it's communion with the saints here. And as you come this morning, in addition to coming and receiving that from the Lord, I would encourage you to pay attention to the line as you're coming up. And would you find somebody in the line that you can just pray for on your way up, and just be thinking about them, or something that you can thank God for about that other person, and just to be mindful of the riches that are ours in this community. And maybe you're coming here this morning and you go, "Yeah, this is all new to me. I have never heard about Jesus. I didn't really understand what church is." I want you to know this invitation is for you. This can be your moment of saying, "Yeah, I need a Savior." You can come and receive his word to you, that he wants to be in a relationship with you. He wants to to have that connection with you. And you can take this morning as that opportunity to say yes to Him. So take a moment and reflect on His gift to us, and then when you're ready, come and receive.